Welcome to the UST Education recorded webinar series. This session is powered by US Transactions. UST is a boutique payment processing firm providing you with personalized service. We offer agnostic, best fit technology solutions for associations, nonprofits, and enterprise clients.
Welcome, everybody. My chat has now disappeared, so maybe I can get it over here. We go. There we go. But Wade, I will depend on you a bit. If there's any questions that come up, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'm super excited.
I'll watch the chat.
Thank you. Super excited to join everybody today. As Wade mentioned, I'm a forthcoming author. I just submitted my manuscript last week. Yay! Super exciting time for me for sure. It was a lot of work. And I spent about 25 years in human resources. I worked for large companies, IBM back in the day, small companies. I've worked now in consulting with Microsoft and Genentech and Facebook and a bunch of these really, sort of big folks. And then I've also worked with, a 10-person company. So I've had lots of opportunities to see people do all sorts of interesting things, as we might say, in HR land. But what I really want to do is start with a little bit of my history. So what we're going to do today is talk about this concept I have about being a little bit more woo at work. And anybody that leads any kind of talk that starts with being a little bit more woo at work, you might assume lots of, crystals and drums or something. And if you could see the rest of my office, you would indeed see some of that. But the truth, the real honest truth, is I'm a bit of a conundrum because I'm also not only kind of a little spiritual, a little mindful, all of that fun stuff, but I'm also a gigantic sports fan. And that love of sports started way back at UCLA when I was an undergrad. And I might have developed a tiny little bit of a crush on one of the new football players at UCLA back in the day. And I was probably more interested in what he was up to off the field than what he was up to on the field. And UCLA's on the quarter system, so we didn't start school until September, and the football season had started back in August, and it gave me an opportunity to do a little bit of, Wade, I think we're among friends here, right? Like light stalking is what I would call it. So I found out he was going to be in this class, and so, I signed up, showed up on the first day, all super excited, and lo and behold, Mr. Touchdown, he sits right in front of me. And I am super excited thinking let me figure out how I can maybe drop my pen so that he would have to hand it back to me. When all of a sudden, in bounds a UCLA cheerleader. Now, if you've seen any kind of UCLA cheerleader, you know what I'm talking about, right? There's the long hair and the short skirt and the big smile. Where did your minds go? And she sits down right next to him and he plants a gigantic kiss right on her. And I'm telling you, all my dreams of romance went from, Friday Night Lights to Tuesday morning study hall with a quickness. So I decided to start paying attention to the class. And this class, as it turns out, was all about this thing called human resources. Now, HR was a topic new to me at the time, and I had no idea what the heck the guy was talking about that was standing in front of the room. But because I no longer had, dreams of romance, I sort of found my passion. I kind of found my thing. And this man had spent many years in human resources before he came back as an adjunct professor at UCLA. And I really developed this passion for how people are far more important, in my mind, than, spreadsheets and operations. And no offense against payment systems, Wade, they're incredibly important, but it's really the humans, right? It's the humans that get it going. We need the payment systems to actually make it run as well. But frankly, it is far more about the humans and what the humans bring every single day. So following that football player actually led to my career. So I want to pause for the very first question right here. And I'm curious, do you have any sort of an accidental choice, a class, a job, even a random conversation you had with a stranger on a plane at some point that maybe shaped your path. I'd love for you to hear, or love for you to put it into the chat if there's anything that has been kind of a chance encounter. And I'll just pause for a second.
Great. So while people are putting that into the chat, I let some people in. Sorry for taking so long to let you in. I was getting distracted, but I just wanted to give you some feedback, what people said about what they'd like to get out of this.
Great.
And Megan says she wants to know how to woo at work, but others were talking about how to build connection in a digital world. Susan talked about being older, how do you stay relevant? Uh, Laura said human aspect to leadership. Travis said how to support teams better. Many people just want to learn best practices in leadership.
I love it. And I'm seeing some of these great responses. Volunteer experience in high school, saying yes. I mean, yes and is one of the most valuable things you could do, and you never know where your yes is going to land. Working for an organization when I was a kid, right? This is one of the things I really want you to hear. And, when we think about woo woo or being woo, it kind of gets this negative connotation. But the fact is all we're really talking about is being present in the moment. And you never know where some sort of chance might occur. I'm seeing a whole bunch of these come up now, like different people and how they have had that kind of chance encounter. And like I said, you never quite know what the thing is going to be that might change your life. A silly crush in college was one of the things for me. Who knows what it was for you? But let's keep rolling. I'd love to keep seeing what you come up with if you have some other thoughts in here, and I'm sure your colleagues would love to see it as well. But let's keep going, because now I've kind of found my path, right? This HR thing sort of seems like something that I might really like. And so I ended up going to grad school, started at UCLA, went to Wisconsin for grad school, making my way across the country. And then straight out of grad school, IBM hired me and they said, we've got this great job for you in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I said, awesome. If you could maybe just point that out to me on a map, because I'm from California. I don't know anything about Raleigh, North Carolina. So after they got a good chuckle out of that, I show up. And, you know how it is when you've graduated, right? You think you're going to save the world and make it a better place. And IBM, in all of their wisdom, what did they do with this young person that wanted to save the world? Yeah, they put me in compensation. And so I spent my first 6 months analyzing. I had this gigantic stack of papers. It seemed like it never went down, never got smaller. And so I spent a lot of time analyzing anybody's compensation that was one standard deviation away from the norm. And we would put eyeballs and literally look to sort of see what was happening. Well, as you can imagine, somebody that follows a football player and goes into human resources a bit on a whim, lots of spreadsheets and paper were not exactly the thing that was lighting me up. So one day I was kind of wasting time in the break room and I heard somebody talking about this conference that they were going to do. And all of the HR folks in the US were going to come together. And IBM's a big company, right? So I think at the time was maybe 400 HR people. And they were looking for folks to kind of run a workshop. Now, keep in mind, this was at the beginning of my career. So it was 25 years ago. And I said, I'll do it. I mean, anything to get away from that stack of papers, right? And so they gave me kind of this big, thick binder of information. And it was something like, the Acme Corporation is facing declining revenue and new competition and a tough labor market. Review the following 14 steps with your participants and come up with a plan. So I was super excited, like real humans away from the paper, right? I got started on my first day and I show up in my little outfit and there in Raleigh, North Carolina, all very excited. And I start running through the instructions as they were given to me. And I kind of got nothing. I mean, people were sort of bored, sort of looking around. I asked a couple more questions. Nothing was happening. So I kind of, I have a little flair for the dramatic. So I made this big exercise of taking that binder and throwing it into the garbage can, and I said, all right, you guys are all the CEOs now. Tell me, how are we going to save the Acme Corporation? And for some reason, that lit something up. And then the ideas start flying and people start getting excited. There's lots of discussions back and forth. The walls get covered with all sorts of flip chart paper. I mean, I am like high as a kite. This is super fun, right? So we wrap up our time together, and people are kind of high-fiving me on the way out. I'm like, man, I nailed that. And not only did I nail it, I think I actually kind of found the thing I might be good at. Like, I like this thing. Similar to what I'm doing right now. Keep in mind, it took me a long time to get back here. So just as I'm sort of congratulating myself and patting myself on the back, the door flies open. And this woman comes storming in, and she was the one that had kind of organized the whole day. And she got right in my face and she said, "How dare you?" And I was taken aback. I was like, what? Like, everybody was just high-fiving me 5 seconds ago. What's happening? She said, "You know what? I trusted you. I told you the rules by which you were supposed to play, and you ignored them." And I mean, I was brand baby new. I couldn't spell IBM yet, right? And here's this very senior person yelling at me, and I just shrunk. So here's the deal. I got 2 very distinct bits of information that day. One was you kind of lit up the room, and you yourself lit up when you got the chance to really facilitate and lead a workshop. And one was, don't bring your whole self. Stay in your own lane. Now, guess which one I listened to for the next 20 years? I tucked parts of myself away, and I started climbing the corporate ladder. Look at my little AI picture there. It says the real me there on the floor as I tried to climb the corporate ladder. And look, I did really well, and ended up being chief people officer at a couple of different organizations. And there was a lot to be proud of in my career. But the fact is that I tucked whole parts of myself away because I thought that that's what it took in order to be successful. So my second question for you, I'm curious, where do you often feel pressure to perform rather than letting your whole authentic self be seen? I'd love to hear what you have to say. Yeah, board meetings. Yeah, I have a couple meetings. Conflict, networking, feedback. Yes. There's a lot of places where we have to kind of armor up, where we put on a facade and we feel like we kind of have to fake it. But the honest truth is that all of that faking it actually leads to deep disconnection. So I want to tell you a story about that. And keep putting your ideas here. Yeah, meetings, confrontation, corporate gatherings. It's tricky, right? It's this balance. Because when we talk about authenticity, sometimes people mean, oh, that means I get to bring all my stuff and I get to, I don't know, I vomit on my colleagues' shoes. That's not what we're talking about. What we are talking about is that spark, right? That difference between me in that conference room in Raleigh, North Carolina, people high-fiving me on the way out, versus the me that like shrunk in order to kind of play the role. And that came to a head for me because about 20 years into my career, and you could look at my LinkedIn profile, I was very successful in a lot of ways. But I got an opportunity to lead HR for a tech company that was also focused on sports. Now, I started this talk with you telling you how much I love sports, right? Especially UCLA football. So when I had that opportunity, I was like, score. This is HR that I love. This is sports that I love. This is amazing. So I was the head of HR. And on my very first day, a woman walked up to me and she sort of said to me, this is a bit of a bro culture here. And I remember being a little bit dismissive and saying to her, yeah, I will just out-bro those bros. You can just watch it happen. But I really quickly felt out of my depth. You know, the CEO, he was a bit of a yeller, and the place ran on endless acronyms and unspoken rules and God knows an overabundance of Axe body spray. It was a lot of dudes back in the day. So I did what a lot of us do when you're in confrontation or corporate gatherings or in networking or member events. And I kind of looked around and I tried to sort of do what the dudes were doing and kind of be like the guys. But the fact is I'm not a very good actress. And the harder I tried, the more I drifted away from who I really am. So one morning, I've had yet another stack of papers. You guys already know how much I love all that paperwork. I had another stack of papers sitting on my desk, waiting for my boss, the CEO, to arrive. And I remember the exact time on the clock on the wall. It was 9:07, and he was late. Now, I didn't mind he was late. Frankly, I felt like those reports stole a little piece of my soul. It wasn't the leadership development or the culture work or the other kinds of human resources that I love. It was all about how do we cut? How do we get better margins? What are the ways that we can shrink more efficiencies? All the things. Listen, those are important parts of business. It's just not the parts that make my heart sing. So I was sitting there waiting and kind of, it was one of those typically bland conference rooms we've all been in, right? You can almost picture it. There's like chicken scratch on the wall that looked like a toddler had been there before me, and somebody's, I don't know, looked like a science experiment that started as a coffee cup, and, computer cords everywhere. You're getting the picture. So it's seemingly out of nowhere. He walks in, and while I can remember that exact time on the clock on the wall, I actually have no idea what he said to me, but the message was clear, and I was fired. Y'all, I was fully and completely devastated. I had put my whole life, my whole everything into this, except for the one most important thing, and that was who I truly was. But you know what's great about being fully and completely devastated? Well, I mean, nothing for a while because it completely sucks. But there is a whole lot of clarity that comes when you're crawling through the mud. And what I realized is that I had been playing the role of corporate executive, mimicking those around me, convincing myself that if I could be just a little bit more like, them, all would be well. All was definitely not well. And listen, I'm not telling you the story to get your sympathy. I am doing just fine, I promise. I'm telling you the story because I think, and I can see it in the chat, a lot of us show up not as our true self, not as our authentic expression of who we truly are, but as some version we think will be acceptable. But here's the deal. After 25 years in human resources and countless weekend workshops and a deep dive into every self-help book I could find, here's what I know. The constant act of performing creates a disconnection. And that disconnection, what happens is we lose touch with who we are and what we actually love about our work. Look, nobody wants to get fired. But I'm telling you, I would rather have been fired if I had been going for it and gone out swinging, bringing my whole self. They just saw a small version of me. And that's what really sucked. Now, here's the deal. I am not alone and in this whole kind of faking it department. Korn Ferry tells us that 71% of executives experience imposter syndrome. And all of this kind of faking it has a performance price. Lower productivity and profitability, higher attrition and disengagement, and God knows, more headaches than, a Monday morning meeting with no coffee. It is a huge problem. So what do we do about this? I kind of realized that I had been looking out there for the secret to good leadership, when the truth is the way forward is in. In is where you can lead from presence, not performance. It's the way back to your authenticity. I call it getting a little woo-woo. So for me, what is helpful is to have an acronym or a framework to remind me how to kind of get back when, because I inevitably, something will trigger me. I'll be at one of those board meetings. I'll be at one of those uh, HR situations. I just saw that one, Marcia. I get it. I'll be in one of those situations and I will drift away from myself again. And the invitation I want to give to you is to remember to be a tiny bit selfish. All right, but not selfish in the way that you're thinking about it. Selfish is a framework I developed to sort of remember how to come back to you. So the S in selfish is to see clearly. By seeing clearly, it's all about getting a little quiet. When you're trying to run around and, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but outbro the bros or whatever you're doing, you reach a point where you don't even recognize yourself. We're going to go deeper on this one in a minute. The E is for engage bravely. Engaging bravely is when you start to drop that armor that we were just talking about, when you let your own light shine and we give other people kind of permission to do the same. I mean, I'm stealing that quote from Marianne Williamson, but when you yourself allow yourself to be seen, you invite others along with you. The L in selfish is for lead wholly, where you lead from your full intelligence. Most of us rely on these beautiful little computers we have up here in our heads, and that's important stuff. It really is. But you have two other centers of intelligence. There's also heart intelligence and gut or body intelligence. Most of us over rely on the brain, but there's been a lot of studies, especially with CEOs, that have learned that just relying on your brain isn't enough. It's your heart and gut as well. And then the F is for flourish fully. This is when you sort of realize what you want life to really look like. And this is when you start to gain more of an understanding of who you truly are and how you really want to live. Not just by the rules, by the things that you're supposed to do, but how you truly want to live. So today, we're going to go a little bit deeper on the S and the F. So see clearly and flourish fully. But if you want to see the whole framework, you can click this QR code and I'll send it over to you. Because our time is short today. We only have, another about 30 minutes left or so. So we're going to move a little fast, go a little bit deeper on see clearly and a little bit deeper on flourish fully. So speaking of going fast, in the Brad Pitt F1 movie, Brad plays Sonny. He's the veteran driver, so cool. He probably, winks at himself in the mirror in the morning. And I found this random picture of Brad that I thought might be entertaining for you all. Then there's Joshua. Joshua is the rookie, and he is all talent, and I'm telling you, zero chill. He drives like the brakes are only a suggestion, and he certainly doesn't think he has anything to learn from the old timer. Now here's where things get interesting. Sonny purposely gives himself downtime. In the movie, you can see him out jogging with the team. He's laughing with the pit crew. I don't know, looking kind of hot on the couch, whatever. But because he has learned that the best way to win is to pause and see clearly. Joshua, on the other hand, always on, more is more. He refuses to slow down until he crashes. And his pause is forced on him. Now, most of us do life a little bit more like Joshua, full speed and no stopping. But here's the deal. If you want to see clearly on the track, in life, at work, you cannot do it if you are always redlining. You have to build in your own resets. And that's why the very first step to get back to who you really are is to see clearly. Pause long enough and come back to your center. Because clarity is not found in the chaos. Clarity is found in the pause. So what I want to do today for this first sort of see clearly section is give you 3 very specific things that you can do to kind of come back to center. I call it Woo That Works. Also the title of my book that's coming out in February, hopefully. Okay, 3 separate things. First one, the commute check-in. Now, on your drive into work, even if, or I should say your time to get to work, whether it's a drive or you're literally walking across your living room like I do every morning, check in with yourself and ask, how am I really doing right now? I don't mean like in a, I don't know, existential way, or even in a, here's the 43 things that I have to get done on my to-do list. This is a, what's coming up for me? You know, am I a little cranky? I mean, not a great day to have that performance review you were planning, right? Excited about the new project? Maybe it's the right day to clear your calendar so you can dive deep since you have that little bit of excitement. Paying attention to where you are helps you to come back to your center and to align. The second one, I call it the pre-meeting reset. I don't know if your calendar, when I was in corporate, Wade and I were talking before you all joined us, and I remember in association work, in volunteer work, in corporate work, all of these different things, your calendar is often more the master of you than you of it. And for me, I remember it would be back to back to back to back to back meetings. And I somehow felt like I just had to say yes to all of that. Here's a little secret, you don't. So a couple of ideas here is to build in purposeful breaks. If you are booking the meeting, can you make it 45 minutes instead of 60? It is amazing. You will fill up that 60 minutes if you have it, but you will also get done in 45 what you might have gotten done in 60. Even if it's just 25 minutes instead of 30, just that 5 minutes to take a deep breath in between things and just come back to your center and reset, it's super helpful. So be purposeful and thoughtful. Look, if you're not in charge of the time, like this meeting's going to go to the top of the hour today, you weren't in charge of that, right? That's just what we booked it for. But could you put a 15-minute break on your calendar so that you can move from this that we've been doing into whatever is next for you? Third idea, 3 deep breaths before you react. If somebody says something to you and it really lights you up and not in a good way, it is so easy just to fire back. I mean, I was very guilty of that many, many times in my career. But it's kind of like that ice cream I stopped for last night after dinner. You might regret it later, right? And so just take 3 breaths, not one, really take 3 breaths. There's something that happens when the oxygen comes into your system. It literally kind of like washes out the cells, re-oxygenates your brain, gives you a little bit more clarity, because if you're coming from that place of anger or that reactive place, it's not going to go super well. So the 3 things I really want you to do here are to get quiet so that you can get clear and come back into presence. Now, I just gave you 3 specific ideas. You can steal one of mine and just put that in the chat. Or are there other things that you already do or want to start doing to try to ground yourself and be a little bit more mindful? Throw it into the chat. Your ideas will be helpful to other people in the ways that you do this. For me, being outside is super important. I'm lucky I work from home, so even just to snuggle with the dog once in a while in between meetings. Anything that you do to help yourself come back to more center. Oh, I love playing my favorite dance song. Yes. Nobody's watching you. Dance it out. Yes. Go for walks. Exercise regularly. Time to reflect. Deep breathing. All of it. Get some coffee. Get some coffee is a really interesting one, because can you get your coffee in a way that brings you back to presence, right? It's not just walk and get the coffee and I'm thinking about the 14 things coming next, but can I be present to what the coffee smells like? Can I be really present to just the right splash amount of milk in it? Can I hold the mug and feel the warmth in my hands, right? There's getting coffee, and then there's being present with getting your coffee. And look, I'm a realist. You can't do this every moment of every day. But when you are trying to build in those breaks, when you are trying to get yourself a little bit more grounded, there are ways to come into more presence, even in that moment of grabbing your coffee. Love all of these. Back porch, breathing, knitting. Oh my gosh, love it. Love it so much. All right, let's keep rocking and rolling because our time is short, but keep putting your ideas in because it's helping your colleagues. These are all ideas that we can learn from and generate for ourselves. And maybe it's something you haven't even thought of before. It might be a quick chat with a friend. Who knows? For me, I've just started playing in a veggie garden. And I'm in California, and so it's very easy to grow veggies here. And every morning I kind of go out and dig in the dirt a little bit and find what has happened overnight. Some things I don't like when there's creatures that have gotten in there, but some things it's like, oh my God, look at my tomatoes are almost ready to be picked. So whatever that thing is for you, finding those moments where you could just reset because the next thing is calling, but the fact is it will wait. So make sure you make time for that reset. Okay, let's keep rolling just to get the next bits in as well. Just refreshing you on the framework. So see clearly, engage bravely, lead wholly, and flourish fully. So let's go a little bit deeper into this idea of flourish fully. I want to tell you a story. So imagine a little girl growing up in a one-room cabin in the mountains of East Tennessee. She is one of 12 children. There's not a lot of money, but there is faith and storytelling and family and a lot of music. After becoming the first person in her family to graduate from high school, she leaves for Nashville, chasing a dream that probably seemed ridiculous to her family. So she eventually lands on a popular TV show, country music TV show, and she finds a mentor in the host. And it is a huge break. It is national visibility, built-in audience. She's getting to sing. It's the kind of platform that a lot of artists would really dream of. And for a while, it's great. I mean, this is a kid that came from nothing in East Tennessee. But eventually she realized she wanted more freedom, more authorship, more room to become the artist that she wanted to be. So she left. I think some of you might be guessing already who I'm talking about, but I'm just going to keep going. But because she is who she is, she didn't just send like a thank you and update her LinkedIn profile or whatever the equivalent was back in the day, but she wrote a song as a goodbye to the mentor and to the TV show that gave her her start. When she launched her solo career, people were trying to tell her to, turn it down a little bit, maybe less makeup, simpler hair, not so tight, not as much sparkle, become a little bit more respectable. But thank goodness she did not listen, because I'm talking about a national treasure here. And she went the exact opposite direction. Bigger hair, bigger dreams, a lot more rhinestones. I'm, of course, talking about Dolly Parton. And that little song that she wrote to say thank you and goodbye, that was I Will Always Love You, that went on to sell over 20 million copies worldwide. Dolly did not become successful by playing small. She did not become successful by playing by the rules. I mean, even her own father was like, hey, less of the chest, please, right? Like everybody in her world was telling her, hey, you've got a beautiful voice. You don't need the hair and the makeup and all the things. And she did not listen. She became who she is, and not only just from a music perspective, but from a business perspective, and for how she's given back to community. She has now given more books to children in need than I think any other private donor ever. It is an amazing heritage and an amazing legacy. And that is Flourish Fully. So my question for you, and this is where I'm going to ask you to get out a pen and paper even before you put something in the chat, because I want you to make some notes for yourself. So whether it's on your cell phone or pen and paper or whatever, I'm going to have some questions for you in a moment. And this exercise, I call it the obituary exercise. So I don't mean to be morbid, but it is an opportunity to just consider, how do you want to be remembered? And so I'd like you to write in the third person and think about these questions. Now, if we were answering these for Dolly, we would answer them in the following, maybe. I mean, this is me and ChatGPT making this up, but this is what we came up with. So Dolly Parton was the kind of leader who made people feel seen, charmed, and maybe a little underdressed. Oh, that's a part of my guidance to you. I don't make this serious. This is not like your resume or your LinkedIn. Make it a little bit irreverent, a little bit fun, put a little joy into it. She had the courage to be rhinestones and steel, sweetness and strategy, heart and empire. She helped people remember. I'm not going to read it all to you, but she made rooms feel, and you can read it. She was known for big hair, bigger talent, songs that could wreck you by the second chorus, movies that made charm look like leadership strategy, and generosity that came with both heart and infrastructure. And what has she left behind? She's still with us, but I'm going to ask you to write this in third person. Answer these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions quickly. Spend just a couple of moments thinking about what you would want to be remembered for, how you would want to be remembered, and answering these questions for yourself. And I'm just going to look at something to give me 1 minute, and that's all we're going to take. It's going to be weird. It's going to be quiet for a minute. I'm just going to sip my drink and let you answer those questions. Oh my God, NC, thank you for that additional information. I didn't know all that. All right, I'm really cheating you on this time, but take about another 20 seconds. Don't make it perfect. There is going to be homework, so as good as you can make it right now. And then I'll give you a little bit more guidance for what to do for homework. And in the last 5 seconds, I'd like you to think about and then put into the chat just one of the things you might have noted. What is a word or phrase that you hope people would use to describe your leadership? One word, one phrase, something you would hope people would use to describe your leadership. Oh, I love this. Compassionate, steady, warm, kind, a supportive friend, empathetic, impact, supportive, valued, made people feel loved, had the courage to dream, helped people remember. Oh my gosh, you guys, these are great. So beautiful, understood, supportive, genuine, compassionate. Emily was the kind of leader who made people feel valued and appreciated, had the courage to say the quiet part out loud, and helped people remember authenticity matters. Emily, you are my spirit animal. I love it. This is amazing. This is only beginning because I'm going to give you some homework. Now, I'm not going to check on the homework, but if you wanted to connect with me on LinkedIn or on my website or something, I'd love to hear more because I want you to take it a step further and write out the most joyous obituary that you can come up with. Now, this is an exercise I have in my book, so I actually have a section of it here that I'm going to read to you. I didn't want to do Dolly's. I took the one that I did for myself. I'll read it to you in just a moment. So the exercise is just do it from a joy. What would you want people to say? And I'll read you mine really quick. So Anne Roby came into this world with a big heart, a sharp mind, and a low tolerance for performative nonsense. She could smell a fake "how are ya" from 3 Slack channels away and had a gift for making tense rooms feel more human. Anne didn't just lead teams, she humaned them. Equal parts truth teller and hype woman, she helped people feel clearer, braver, and more willing to tell the damn truth. She believed strategy mattered, but strategy without soul was just a well-formatted document collecting dust. Results were the goal, humanity was the way. This kind of reminds me a little bit of what Emily wrote. She kept learning, evolving, and choosing the next brave step, even when it required pants with an actual waistband. Not that I have one of those on today. She loved woo, but only the kind that held up on a Tuesday morning budget meeting. Breath work, truth-telling, and boundaries delivered with warmth and zero apology. Her legacy was not a title or resume line. It was softer rooms, steadier teams, humans who remembered they belonged, empty cocktail glasses, and pups who knew they were wildly, ridiculously loved. Bossy to the end, Anne had 3 final requests. Tell the truth but kindly. Stop saving your aliveness for someday. And please don't skip dessert, preferably with your favorite cocktail. So this is what I'm saying. If you take those questions that you just answered, even if you worked with an LLM, Chat, or Claude, or whoever is your favorite, and threw that in to help format this, because the second part of this homework that I'm going to ask you to do is consider the delta between this joyous obituary that you're going to write and where you are now. What are the areas that's like, oh, not quite there yet? What are some specific things that I can do to get from where I am now to where I want this to be and what I want to be remembered for? So your homework, 2 pieces. Write out the obituary, even if it's with some help from ChatGPT, all fair. And then 2, consider the delta between where you are now and what you have written. All right. If we have questions along the way, go ahead and throw them in the chat, but I'm going to keep rolling just for the sake of time. So again, I'm just giving you this QR code one more time. If you want a little bit more, I have the exercises for each of the S, E, L, and F, And I'm happy to send those to you. Just connect with me through this QR code and I'll send those over to you. Okay, so let's wrap up where we started. Back with UCLA football. No, I did not find my long lost love. But last season did make my heart go pitter patter just a little bit. The 2025 team is an example of everything that we have been talking about. You know, on paper, it should have been a great season. We had an experienced coach, a marquee quarterback, and really solid strategy. But instead, it started like a disaster. We lost the first 4 games of the season, and not to top tier teams. No. I mean, schools we should never have lost to. I mean, hell, we paid New Mexico, literally paid them to play us, and we lost badly. Panic set in. The head coach was fired, and the assistants had to step up as interim coaches. Now, those interim coaches brought all of themselves, and they woke something up on that team. So with new energy, connection, and drive, UCLA came out against Penn State, who was ranked number 7 at the time, and absolutely shocked the country. They won that game, and then the next 3. At the start of the season, UCLA had all the strategy in the world. What they lacked was clarity about who they were, and the courage to play authentically, and the will to lead with their whole selves. When that showed up, they flourished fully. Now, as much as I love football, and you could tell that I do, this talk really isn't about football. It is about you. And it's not the title that you wear or the polished version that you might trot out at board meetings or networking events or some of those other things we talked about in the chat earlier. But this is the real you beneath the surface. Because there is a version of you, honest, unmasked, powerful, that your team, the folks that you work with, the people on your boards, they are praying will show up. You know, I just invited you to use ChatGPT for something, and I love using artificial intelligence for specific things. But the fact is, it is getting harder and harder to differentiate what is real and what is artificial. And that 71% imposter syndrome number scares me, because I spend a lot of my time and a lot of my career talking to senior leaders about culture and performance. And when we have 70% of employees across the US who are actively disengaged, we are losing money and resource and connection. And I think in my heart of hearts that it is not me climbing the ladder with those little high heels on and pants with an actual waistband. It is the real you showing up every day and bringing who you are. And look, I know like 100% of who you are is probably also not in the cards. But can you picture the difference between that me that was so excited and throwing away the rule book at the beginning of my career at IBM, and how people were high-fiving me on the way out, and I was like, oh my God, I found my thing, which I then left. I put away for 20 years because I was very busy climbing the corporate ladder, and I wasn't bringing me. Can you imagine how much stronger I would have left some of those organizations if I had just been a little bit more myself? If I had poured a little bit more of that woo in. You know, part of the story I didn't tell is after I lost that job, I took about a year off, traveled around the world, did a bunch of things. A lot of spiritual leaders, some very funny stories that'll be in the book, but at one point I had like a gigantic drum on my head. It was very strange. But what I learned in all of that is just to bring a little bit more me. And so when I went back and I was chief people officer at an education technology company here in Oakland, California, I was like, I will win or lose on who I am. And so one of the things I am most passionate about is self-development. So I brought the Enneagram into this ed tech company, And we ended up training about 70% of the population of the company on the Enneagram. And look, I happen to love the Enneagram, but I don't care what it is. The thing that I'm telling you is that two things. One, I brought me because that was my thing and I was super into it. But I also, so I was able to express who I truly am. But I also brought this thing that allowed others to see themselves, right? And so what would have happened if I brought some more of that earlier in my career? I mean, who knows, right? I'm super happy with what I'm doing now. It's very cool. But could I have left rooms a little bit better? Could I have left teams and organizations a little bit better? Because the fact is, the world does not need more leaders who look perfect. We can tell when somebody's faking it, right? We need leaders who are authentic and real. And the best way to get there is to pause long enough to see clearly, to practice vulnerability and engage bravely, to lead with your whole self, your brilliance, your not just that brilliance in your brain, but in that heart and in the gut that you have as well. And then let yourself meet that version of you that you're going to write for your homework. I hope you will really write it. Let yourself meet that person so that you can flourish fully. That helps you meet your deepest desires and brings people along with you. Because in a world of artificial everything, it's yourself that is actually the antidote. So I want to thank you guys so much for your time. This is how you can connect with me if you're interested. Any final questions or anything else in the chat, I'm happy to answer. Oh, love the Enneagram. Emily, girl, speaking my language. Oh my gosh. I'm a type 8. Tell me what type you are. And I say it like that because nobody ever likes their own type. They always want to be a different type. So that's how we know when we're onto something. Any other questions? Anything? Oh, it's type 6. Great. Awesome. Oh, thank you, Marcia. Love it. Any other
Yeah, let's
questions? Anything I can answer?
Yeah, we have a couple minutes, so let's see if there's any questions. I'm
Cool.
sure one or two people may have a question, and
Amazing.
while maybe they're putting a question into chat, I just would comment. I love the joyous obituary. I mean, I've seen the exercise before of where they would suggest write your obituary, right? But that was always like kind of morbid. But
Yeah.
your approach of doing a joyous obituary and how that's really tied into the real you, like, that's trying to reveal the real you. So I love that approach. So I think that's a very um, that's a real good homework
I
assignment
love
for
it. I
everybody.
love it. And then
Yeah.
that little delta, right? Like where it's the difference between this beautiful thing I just created and where I am now. And how can I just be, don't try to do it all at once. Like you can't just, okay, I'm now just gonna completely change how I show up at work or with my association or whatever. But how can you be 10% more? Just to bring just a little bit more of who you are every day.
Yeah.
Any other
And
questions? I'm happy to answer.
so there were no other questions, it looks like, but I would like everybody to put into the chat as the final question, like, what was your most important takeaway? And I think that would be a great gift back
Love
to
it.
Anne if you would tell her what your most important takeaway was. Uh, I love what you said about win or lose on who you are,
Yeah.
like, so have that confidence to win or lose on the basis of who you are. And I loved your stories at the beginning, like your UCLA class story. I mean, that I think that transported all of us back into our college or high school days,
Love
or
it.
even the story about being fired and knowing what time it was exactly, 9:07. I mean, uh, a
Seared in
lot
my
of us,
brain.
a lot of us have probably gone through that at one point in our
Yep.
career
Yep.
and remember that as well. So,
Amazing.
um, but yeah, you can see some of the responses there in chat. Uh,
That's
and
great.
and if you could also put your contact information into chat, I want to share my screen. So all of you have put your final thoughts in. I really appreciate that. You can follow or you can go to usteducation.org at any time and see upcoming webinars for free CAE and CPE credit and valuable, obviously, professional education like what you have here. Also on our media library, like the recording of this will be on the media library, as are hundreds of other prior events. Um, and then here's a QR code if you wouldn't mind leaving us a review and Anne as well. So this is the QR code for that. If you could put that up, and if any of you are on the call and would be interested in possibly being a speaker, why don't you put that? You can put that into chat, and we'll follow up with you as well. Let's see. I guess I don't have anything else. I'll just leave it to Anne for any closing comments. And Anne, you may have seen some comments that came in from people that may inform what you want to say as a closing remark.
Yeah, I love this. And I think the most important thing you can do with any kind of training that you do, anything, is, this could have been a mildly interesting hour that we spent together. Or you can take one or two things away. And I loved, Wade, the invitation to put in something that you're taking away, because that is indeed what you want to do, right? Like, you can't do all the things. You might remember the UCLA story because it made you giggle. But what I really want you to remember is, how do you bring more of yourself? And I mean, those statistics are jarring to me. And the new Gallup study just came out a couple of months ago, and things are getting worse. And they're getting worse for everybody, but they're getting especially worse for managers. And so if anybody's in that management role, or you manage managers in any way, it is our managers are actually our most disengaged and are having the hardest time. And if you think about that Marianne Williamson quote that I somewhat butchered during my talk, but it is really you shining your own light. It gives people the invitation and the okay to shine their own light. And that is really what I want to leave you with, that you being your authentic self is not only good for your own mental health, but it brings people along with you, and it changes cultures. It improves how people are showing up and how they feel connected to you and the organization. And I think it is the path forward. So I'm wishing everybody a fantastic rest of your day. I'm so appreciative that I got to spend this time with you. Connect with me. You saw all the connections. We'll send out some slides later today as well, but I really